Thank you, right.
Are you suggesting that someone's trying to make a real-life sequel?
Stab 2? Who'd want to do that? Sequels suck. No.
2 in the box!
Ready to go.
We be fast and
They be slow.
wow!
A second Super Saiyan? Second in order, perhaps, but by no means in stature. Your fight is with me now.
I'll have my revenge, and Deathstalker too.
Man, I can't fucking believe this. Another basement, another elevator. How can the same shit happen to the same guy twice?
Oh, please, please. By definition alone, they're inferior films.
All right. How's it going, everyone? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Inside the Sequel. You know what this is. It's the podcast where we talk about sequel movies that do not get enough love or attention that they deserve. And on this month's episodes of Inside the Sequel, it seems like it's very sports related. And mostly because we're talking about the 1982 sequel, a personal favorite sequel of mine. It's about time we cover one of those in this show. We're talking about the 1982 film Rocky III.
Now, when we fought, you had that eye of the tiger, man, the edge. And now you got to get it back. And the way to get it back is to go back to the beginning. You know what I mean?
United Artists and Chartoff Winkler proudly present Rocky III.
Get out of here with you!
The truth is, we both started out on the same corner, and I got lucky with my life, and it's driving you nuts.
Philadelphia salutes its favorite son, Rocky Balboa.
Hey, why don't you tell all these nice folks why you've been ducking me?
This guy is a wrecking machine.
You know, you got a big mouth.
Why don't you come out and close it, Balboa? Come on.
I want to fight this guy.
You fight him without me.
Balboa was a fine champion, but his time has passed.
See that look in their eyes, Rock? Got to get that look back, Rock. Eye of the tiger, come on.
I will destroy any man who tries to take what I got. I'm gonna torture him. I'm gonna crucify him real bad.
For the first time in my life, I'm afraid.
Damn, Rock, come on!
There's nothing wrong with being afraid.
You thought I was tough? This jump will kill you.
You wake up after a few years thinking you're a winner, but you're not.
There is no tomorrow.
You're really a loser.
Well, I don't believe it.
There is no tomorrow.
It's Rocky's greatest challenge to save his honor, his marriage, and his manhood against his most devastating and dangerous opponent.
I'm gonna bust you out.
Go for it.
Sylvester Stallone, Talia Shire, Burgess Meredith, Carl Weathers, Burt Young, and introducing Mr. T. Rocky III.
And for today's episode, I'm very excited because we have two special guests. One I haven't had in a long time, and one I feel like I can't get his name out of my mouth. So I have from the podcast, he's a man that, you know, I don't hate, but I pity the fool. And I will destroy any man that will take what I got. And that is Matt Bozo Bledsoe from the Film Feast.
Oh, no. Hey, Chris, how's it going? I don't know about the Bozo nickname, but I'm happy to be.
Oh, Bozo.
I don't want that to stick. I don't want that to stick.
Bozo out of love. Bozo out of love. And then,
okay.
And then, of course, I can't escape from this genre, but I have the guest I've been looking forward to having on for a long time. I have Ken Walker, Texas Ranger. Ken Walker, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing very well. I'm happy to be on talking specifically about a Rocky movie. I've got my punching bag that I now have in my home office in the background here. I got my 3D printed Rocky statue by my side, and I am ready to talk Rocky 3.
Yeah, I'm excited. Guys, my first thing for guests to give up visual cues, I'm so glad you all decided to be shirtless with me for this talk, since, you know, we're all jacked. We all have these six packs, right?
Yeah.
Should we start talking like we're like from the streets of Philadelphia too? Like, come on, you're gonna be punchy, you're gonna be a boom the whole time. Are we gonna talk like that? Just like, you know...
Yep. Maybe one of us can talk like Rocky, one like Mr. T, and one like Hulk Hogan.
God.
There you go. But boys, I'm so glad to have you on. I'm so excited, mostly because this is a movie that I feel like I know inside and out, but also it's like just to talk about, you know, 80s movies and like Stallone and stuff like that. But before we even get into that, I love to check in, and I know the listeners want to check in. How have you two been doing? What have you two been up to lately? Let's go ahead with Matt. You know, how are things going on the Film Feast? How was your New Year? Any New Year's resolutions for the podcast?
Lots of good questions. First of all, of course, me and Ken have been busy running down the beaches together, training for this podcast.
Close-ups on our glistening thighs.
Half shirts and short shorts. It's very cold out, but we just got to keep in shape. We got to keep training. So, I mean, as far as film fees, the usual. We did our best of episodes. We did our top 10 discoveries episode, best of 2022. Ken was just on for like a random bullshit episode, mostly about the movie Cats, which was a fun time. And yeah, I kind of took it light around the holidays, but we're getting back into the groove now of new episodes every Monday. But yeah, I don't know anything in particular to say. Just, always fun stuff happening over there with good guests. So, the usual.
I just can't believe with your top 10 new discoveries episode, I was like, they still finally have checked this movie out. Like, it took them this long to discover this. It's like, oh my gosh, like y'all relate to the freaking party.
You heard Daniel when I said I hadn't seen Iron Giant until last year.
Yeah,
you heard that episode.
I was like, no wonder he's always grumpy. No childhood for him.
I deserve that for Iron Giant. That was I can't wait to see that movie till then. But yeah. It's I know there's always stuff to see. There's always new stuff to see.
It's like of all the Vin Diesel movies you've seen, you hadn't seen Iron Giant. That's crazy.
I know. Was messing up for a long time.
There you go. And Ken, what about you, man? How things been going for you?
Everything's been very good for me. It's so funny. I feel like I've mentioned this to Lindsay Wilkins off air, but I really feel like all you guys are sort of like the main cast of Parks and Rec, and I'm like John Ralphio Saperstein, just coming in every now and then and making my impact and then dipping out. I'm not part of the main cast, but I make an impact. Or at least I like to think I do.
There you go. You see, I think my attachment to Ken is that for a lot of movies that I watch, I love those sub characters, those sub co-stars, like the Dick Millers, the Brian Cox, excuse me, like those character actors, they're so recognizable, but they're never the main leads, but they're always they play a role that's identifiable with that actor. That's Ken for me. And it's that's why I always want him around, because it's I love those people and I would die for those actors in movies. And I'm always justice for them, get them in more stuff, so.
Well, thank you, Chris. I believe Matt told me, isn't there a documentary about Dick Miller that's titled, "Hey, it's that guy, the Dick Miller story"?
I think it is called that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's one of those, that guy, that you're oh, it's that guy, but no, people don't know their names. Yeah.
Is it an actual Justice documentary? Is it one of those Netflix documentaries? Remember this guy? We're gonna make a quick buck off of him because that's gonna piss me off.
I know nothing about it.
I think it came out a while ago. I think it was not Netflix produced. So.
Gotcha.
Well, it was made with love.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's weird because they didn't invite me for that. That's weird.
Oh well.
But no, boys, I'm so excited to have you two on. So it's been a very sports centric month, and the thing is, what's funny? I feel like there's people who are big sports fans, and when it comes to sports movies, they usually have very shitty taste or crappy taste in the sports movies. But the people who aren't into sports or don't follow sports as religiously as ex high school athletes have great taste in sports movies, and it's are you guys really into that? When I think of Rocky, it's almost, you forget sometimes, it's a boxing movie. Obviously it's a boxing movie. You think about the drama, you think about all these other things, but in a world where I feel we're getting so many sports films, is that a genre you two gravitate towards? Or is it something if I hear good things, I might watch it? Or if it's not anything like Draft Day, I don't care about it? Or if it doesn't have Kevin Costner, basically.
Matt, do you want to speak to your taste on that?
I was going to say, I feel I'm not usually into sports movies, honestly. And I'm into the ones that probably center more around things that happen in sports than the sport itself. It's kind of I feel war movies. It's movies that are around a war, but not just all about the battle, some of the smaller stuff. Boxing's different. I feel because boxing, I think, is pretty cinematic. There's some sports I feel just aren't cinematic. It's it's just not made for movies. But I don't run away from a sports movie. I just don't gravitate towards them. I don't know. It's I do like Draft Day.
I knew that's the movie everybody likes. Yeah.
It's all about the behind the scenes. There's no football being played. I like Moneyball, which is about baseball, but behind the scenes of baseball. So yeah, and then Rocky's just different. I mean, it's just human drama that gets kind of more ridiculous as they go on with the sequels. But I like that. The boxing's good. I feel like, I mean, there's a lot of fights in movies, obviously, and a boxing is just a staged fight with judges and referee. It's like it's very easy to put into a movie. So yeah, I don't, I'm definitely not the biggest sports movie guy, but I like them well enough. I'll say that.
Okay. Ken?
I'll say, so sports movies to me, like, they're always better when the sport is either like an allegory for something, or if it more is like, if it sort of takes a back seat to the actual human drama. Rocky is my second favorite movie of all time. And like other sports movies, I mean, The Sandlot is great. It's not so much about baseball, but it's about these kids coming of age. Remember the Titans is great. But so yeah, it's more for me like when the sport isn't like, it is front and center, but it's not so much like what the movie's about. And yeah, I believe Stallone himself said that Rocky is not a sports movie; it's a love story.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's funny, like when I was growing up, we watched Rocky a lot. It's just funny because I made the joke, I remember remembering Rocky beat by beat, the original. It's a Best Picture winner. And sometimes when I watch it, I forget it's a Best Picture winner film. It's not like, I mean, you think about movies that won Best Picture in the 70s, it doesn't feel the same like The Godfather or like The French Connection or Annie Hall or anything like that. It feels very,
Rocky feels more mainstream.
Yeah, it's mainstream. It feels like if Forrest Gump was good and not like so memeable, and then it's also like, I feel like it would have went straight to DVD. I don't feel like Rocky would be like this
really?
Like big movie. I don't know. Sometimes it's because it's so accessible. I feel like it would be a movie that get like a following, or something. I don't know. It doesn't feel, and it's weird because we put the stigma of like an Oscar Best Picture winner, right? Especially in like 2023, where I can barely remember the last two winners of the Best Picture. Where it's like Rocky, it's like, it's so iconic, it doesn't feel like it should be. It's just like a movie that had like a great following. It's
got to be one of the more popular mainstream Best Picture winners of like it's an underdog feel good story. Do you guys know what it was up against? I just googled this. The movies it was up against that year. It's an insane. It's a pretty
Taxi
good
Driver, right?
Taxi Driver. Network.
A
movie I never heard called Bound for Glory, and then one called All the President's Men, another big movie. It's
All the President's Men, yeah, that's a good one. That one should have been maybe the like quote unquote Oscar movie in like hindsight 2023, because it's like it feels like such that Network for sure, Yeah,
I mean, it feels like the more important air quotes that I'm using there. Movies are Taxi Driver, Network, and All the President's Men, but Rocky's like the real mainstream crowd pleaser. So
it would have been
it won.
It would have been like the Oscar movie where they try to do two Best Picture winners, where it's like the one that was Best Picture and then like the crowd favorite Best Picture winner, which was basically like the Bohemian Rhapsody like trophy movie.
Oh yeah, that idea that they never went through with. So they're gonna have like a fan voted favorite and then an actual Best Picture winner, which was like the stupidest idea they've ever had.
Right.
Let's really dilute the award now. Yeah.
Do you remember how stupid we were in 2018 because it was such a bad year for the Academy? Like they just picked every wrong thing.
Oh my god, yeah.
2018. Oh my gosh. Also, can you imagine a world like if like Taxi Driver had won Best Picture? I feel like the Sigma movement would be like so normalized. It wouldn't be such an ostracized group. You know what I mean?
I just watched your whole video on the Sigma movies, and I learned so much.
Good. We're trying to educate on the channel.
Taxi Driver is like one of the original, I think, Sigma films.
I feel like everyone can identify as Travis Binkle between the ages of 18 all the way to 35, right?
I hope not. I was thinking like I did not.
Lusting after 13-year-old Jodie Foster.
Oh, there you
go. I forgot about that part.
Was he lusting or was he trying to protect? That's the big question.
Both?
Well, I was gonna say there was one significant person who identified with that. Who tried to assassinate a president.
Jesus. Yeah.
Okay. Is the Sigma movement like problematic? Is that what you're trying to say?
It might be. It might be.
You don't say.
Now here's a question: would Rocky be Alpha or Sigma?
I mean, he was walking a 14-year-old home and talking about not being, a girl who hangs out with a bunch of boys at night. That also like in the original Rocky, the way him and Talia Shire act towards each other, would that be acceptable in 2023? I don't know.
So that's the one thing everyone calls out from the first Rocky as being like kind of
the one issue that's a
questionable,
little
problematic, a
so
little weird, but I don't know.
I think because we know the character and we know where his heart is and who he is,
right.
I think it's easier for us to understand.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, we know he's a good person at heart, so that was just weird, I think. But it wasn't like we know he's not like a scumbag. Especially we have like many more movies afterwards to understand the character, and they end up together, so it all worked out.
Also, the thing I want to point out. Also, the thing I want to point out about, like, I just think it's so crazy that, like, in the Rocky universe, where the first two movies are so grounded in reality, and the first one's an Academy Award winner, in this same universe, eventually Rocky owns a robot, and like an artificially intelligent robot.
One of the most iconic cinematic robots, mind you.
Possibly, also possibly a sex robot for Paulie? Question. I mean, it sure seems that way.
Burt Young was living in 2050 whatever right now with that robot. Like he had he had that big brain energy.
Yeah.
Also,
Paulie's so mad in 3, and then he gives him a sex robot in 4. It's like, what are you mad about now? I gave you this robot.
Exactly, because in 3, which we're going to talk about, Paulie's complaining you didn't do anything for him.
That's true. That's a great avenue because I love how Rocky 3. Okay, first of all, I love how the Rocky movies, they start out with the intro of like getting you back on track of like what you missed from the last movie.
A nice little recap, yeah.
Right, because it's like there was like 2 years in between each one, I think. Because this first one was 76 and then 78 and then 82, so 3 years I think between 2 and 3. So like fills you back in, so it's like, oh, of course you're gonna go rewatch the previous one to get caught up, but just in case you did it lets you get to the climax of the movie. I think it's awesome how it does that, because I forgot what the point I was going to make with it. Jeez. Oh, it shows you like the high, but then it leads into like the immediate problems of like Paulie and Rocky, and you see all his success and stuff like that. I think that's a great like snap to like a conflict that's going on, because like for the last two movies, like Paulie's been there, but like, Paulie's not a good guy. He's not like a great friend, and it's but like the relationship is never really like that much touched on, I mean, it adds to the human drama, but like, I feel like Rocky 3 is like, let's take care of this Paulie issue right off the get-go and like, let that be like the tone for the rest of this movie. That I felt like the first two movies kind of missed out on, you know what I mean? Because I felt like it wasn't like Rocky and Paulie that much in the first two. It was more like Rocky and Gazzo. That kind of dealing with that more than anything else. So I like to talk about Rocky 3 to start. I really appreciate how they, one, do the recast, but then two, they go straight to like, okay, here's our main character that we've been following the last two movies and how we're rooting for him. Now let's see it from the perspective of someone else that's not an opponent, but someone who's been by their side. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I texted or called Ken like pretty quickly watching Rocky 3, and I was like, man, Paulie's a real piece of shit. Like, so ungrateful. And then I forgot later on in the movie, he's just outwardly racist when they go to Apollo's gym, and I'm like, Jesus. Like, I was like, do they want me to hate this guy? Like, and yeah, I just, oh my God, at the beginning when he's just whining about like, and it's like kind of creepy. I think he was also a little creepy towards his own sister. Like he was a little too like possessive of his own sister. Like it's like a little weird, and it's like,
well, doesn't he say, "I gave you my sister"?
Yeah, it's real weird. I know it's like an older mindset, but still, it's still weird. And I'm like, what? This man's doing good stuff for you. Like, what do you want? Like, he's giving you money. Like, I think Ken, you pointed out though, it's like he hadn't done much for him yet, but he eventually would put him on this team. But it's like,
yeah, because I think Paulie points out he's just like, all he did was like give him a watch. Which, I mean, first of all, Rocky doesn't really owe you anything, which I also do love that line where like Paulie says, you owe me, friends owe, and Rocky says friends don't owe, they do because they want to do.
Yeah, just that really, I forgot how shitty Paulie was when I watched this movie again.
Yeah, Burt Young is, I feel like I've seen him in a couple other movies. One of the main ones was Once Upon a Time in America by Sergio Leone. No, I haven't seen Once Upon a Time in the West, miss me with watching a fucking Western, but Burt Young just happens to always play like a scumbag, and in Once Upon a Time in America, he plays a scumbag in that movie too. He just seems to gravitate towards that role.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. He's probably a very nice man in real life. I think he's still alive, isn't he?
He is.
Even though he's looked 45 to 50 for like 50 years. So I don't know, like, I don't know how he's still going, but yeah, it's.
I think when I was most recently watching the first Rocky, I like looked it up and I think I messaged you. How old do you think Burt Young is in the first Rocky? And you said like 45, and I think I said he's like in his early 30s in that movie.
Wow, oh my God!
It reminds me. It reminds me of Abe Vigoda. Abe Vigoda looked so old in the first Godfather, and then he didn't die until like 2018.
Guys were just built different then. They were built different in the 70s. They were like living in smoky rooms, drinking bourbon all the time.
That's why vices are good, boys, because it prolongs your health and how you look.
I was starting to think, I was like, man, why do I even try to take care of myself at all? Burt Young's still alive. It's like he's looked this way for like 50 years.
We've said people back then aged so hard. Like they lived on a diet of cigars and bacon grease.
And needles, right? Pointing out to Philadelphia.
Shout out to Philadelphia.
Yes.
Needles.
Just so everyone could know, like, you've all three of us have been to Philly then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like we know the city, you know, like that's our town. Like the three of us, Phillies are, you know, it's like that's our town. Yeah. We're Philly boys. Like,
big Philly boys.
Before people call us out, we've seen the Rocky statue. We get up the stairs. We've done our thing. Yeah. Just so everyone knows.
Yeah.
So to go. Yes. So was something I want to bring up before the whole Polly situation happens in the movie. I just love that opening montage of like Rocky's success. And I pointed out to Matt, I don't get how in the second movie he can't read off cue cards, but apparently now that he's gotten hit in the head even more, now he's able to do these MasterCard commercials and hang out, do scripts with the Muppets.
Shout out to that Muppets cameo. I love that Muppets show cameo quickly. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like it's a weird inconsistency that he like has. That's a whole subplot of 2, right? That is like he just can't really read, and then 3 he's like he's doing fine. He's like, yeah, I can read now.
Matt,
he got hit just right in the head. You got
hit
punch just.
That's my very flawed theory. Is like he's getting hit, so his brain like reconnects in the right way. It's like boom, now I know math. Boom, now I can read.
It's like I think that's a Simpsons episode where like they fall and he's like, oh no, now I forgot math or something like that.
Yeah. Now I don't know math.
I think I still Chief Wiggum's kid, right?
It was Ralph Wiggum. Yeah, Ralph. He and he gets hit or something. He's like, now I don't know math.
Classic.
We're showing your age now because we're referencing The Simpsons on this podcast.
I mean, it's still on, so who knows?
I wait for a Simpsons 2 movie so that I can cover it on here. Jeez.
Maybe one day. Maybe I'll wrap the show up.
It's weird how we got a Simpsons movie, but never a King of the Hill movie.
Yeah. No, I was
and
surprised
a Bob's Burgers movie.
Yeah.
Bob's Burgers movie. I was surprised South Park, like before any of them, when it was like the youngster, it got its theatrical movie before any of them.
2 years in, they had a movie. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I think because they made the movie themselves, they kind of forced their way into a movie.
Yeah, and Paramount was just like, yeah, we'll do this. We'll put this
out. So, you know, speaking about Rocky 2, I know we're going to be talking about Rocky 3 specifically, but like just Rocky as a whole, you know, I love that first movie, but I feel like, you know, I don't know, what's the consensus with Rocky? Do people like that there are a lot of sequels to it, or do they think it's like one of those things where it's like the more sequels that come out, it kind of diminishes the first movie? You know what I mean? The whole like Rocky 4 effect, which is funny because people criticize Rocky 4, but like I remember growing up until like age 11 or 12, like every New Year's we would watch Rocky 4 and stay up till midnight because I mean, or it was like a Christmas, New Year's kind of movie, you know? That's just what we did.
I've heard the arguments both ways. Like I've heard the argument saying like 3 and 4 get too over the top and they kind of diminish how grounded the first Rocky is. And then I've heard people feel like they love the sequels up to part 5. And I feel like when I was growing up, the consensus was like, oh, part 5 is just not good, or at least it's not as good as the other ones. And which I kind of agree with because I didn't watch any of the Rocky movies till like 10 years ago. And they all popped up on like Netflix streaming back when like that was still felt like a novel thing.
Back when Netflix had everything, like
when they had a lot more stuff, and they had all the Rocky movies. And I was like, I should finally watch these. And I got really into it, and I was watching all of them, and like really, 2 surprised me because I thought 2 was gonna be like a retread of the first one, but I think it's really good on its own. 3 and 4 great. I got to 5, and I was like, oh yeah, 5, you are kind of a letdown. It's just kind of like but I like Rocky Balboa more than 5. Like I thought it rebounds, like the Creed movies. And 5's not even that bad. 5's just like bad by comparison, I think.
It's just the weakest. I'll
It's just the
say
weakest of the series. Yeah.
yeah, I'll say the first Rocky stands above the rest for me, absolutely.
Okay.
But none of them let me down. Even five, it being the weakest, I still have a soft spot for. I love that street fight at the end.
Yeah.
But I was just gonna say they're all incredibly formulaic, but
Well, yeah.
I can't help. I'm a sucker for them.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm in the camp where I'm a sucker for him, and with five, I think it's mostly my biggest problem with five is the excuse to how we get to where we're at in five, and I know that'll be just a coverage of like five at some later point eventually because I'm a schmuck that way. We'll get to five, next year we'll get you on for five. We'll do all the odd numbered sequel movies of the Rocky franchise. But Rocky five, it's just like, yeah, the call to action and conflict is like Paulie made a weird deal, and as a kid I could never comprehend why that's bad, why they're so it's like, oh, okay, whatever. Now he's back to being poor, whatever. In hindsight, that doesn't make sense. And it was also the first PG-13 one as well, because you see the giant tits in that movie on the drawing.
The drawing, yeah.
Which was a weird like change of pace for the franchise. But yeah, all of them I really enjoyed. If anything, my biggest problem was Rocky Balboa. But then the more I watch that one, I'm kind of like, I do kind of enjoy it, but it feels weird. It feels like five is detached and replaced with Rocky Balboa. And then with the Creed movies, I kind of forget about Rocky because I like those movies. But yeah, I'm at the camp. Like, I think the sequels, just make the franchise as a whole just better. You know what I mean? It kind of makes me wish Stallone just made franchise out of all the movies he made. Like, could you imagine if we got like 3 over the top movies, or like 3 Hot Shots, or like 3 different I'm blanking Cobra movies, like that'd be freaking cool. Like,
oh my god,
Stallone
I wish
is
we
just
had
like
3 Cobra movies.
Yeah, like
didn't Cliffhanger get a sequel?
Did it?
No.
Don't.
No.
I was gonna say, Ken, don't tease me like that, because your ass is back on here.
It should have. It made a lot of money. I think because the studio went bankrupt afterwards. But
okay.
No Judge Dredd sequel from him. There's a Judge Dredd without him. But
right.
but he has Rambo and Rocky. To have 2 major franchises like
that.
Oh,
the Expendables.
Oh yeah, that counts. Yeah. I mean...
Don't give me that little smirk. Like, oh, I guess.
Because I didn't want to put up with Rocky and Rambo.
Matt,
I didn't want to put
up a commitment off recording. Were you going to be on for Expendables 3?
Oh, jeez. Don't I love 2. Get me on for 2. 3 is like, oof. And 4's coming out at some point.
See, Ken, that's how I rope Matt back into another episode. I just say it out loud to the mic, and he's like, "Oh, I guess I'll do it."
Yeah, exactly. You baselessly claimed that he agreed to this, and now it's on recording.
I feel like I have to do
I'm like a car salesman on this podcast. I sucker bait switch guests to come back on.
Can I make this might be a really hot take that if I was to rank the Rocky movies,
oh god,
not in terms of quality necessarily, in terms of how much I enjoy them.
Yeah.
My personal favorites, I'd go Rocky 3 is my favorite.
Yeah.
Then Rocky 4, then the first Rocky.
That's it? You just stop after that?
I just stop after that. I could keep going. The shocking part was only Rocky below those 2. Then I'd go Rocky 2. Then I'd go Balboa. Then I'd go 5. I would do Creed probably separately. If I had to throw Creed in there, it'd be a whole different.
You know what's funny?
thing.
I kind of want to write that down to hold you accountable on that, Matt. What about you, Matt? Ken, let's hear yours.
Okay, hold on. It's actually funny. I wrote a Medium article about this like years ago.
Oh wow.
Weird how it's not on his letterbox. I could just quickly stalk that and see.
Oh wait, it is on my letterbox.
Yeah.
Let me just pull that up. That'll be much easier.
While he's waiting, I would probably say mine goes 3, 2, 1, 4, Balboa, and then 5.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna throw the Creeds into mine because in my letterbox ranking I have them in there.
Oh, that just changes everything.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm throwing them in. You know what? I'll leave Creed off.
Okay.
So for me, last place is I'm going backwards to build the tension. Last place is 5, then 4, then 3. I'm really basic here. Then 2. Then Rocky Balboa is actually my second.
Weird.
I love Rocky Balboa. I love that speech he gives to his son is like so inspiring to me, and I just it really captures the underdog attitude of the first one. Like in that the first one is just this little local guy who gets a shot. This one is about like a has-been who has a chance to, vindicate himself. And then of course number 1, you can't avoid it. It's the first one.
Yeah. You just really like the Mason the Line Dixon character, right?
Let me say, Antonio Tarver is not a great actor. But I will also say that character is a lot more grounded than most of the antagonists, even more so than Apollo Creed.
Yeah, when I think about Balboa, like the good stuff in that, it's always like it's the Mason, the Line Dixon stuff, because he's not really a bad guy, you know. He's like he just happens to be the heavyweight champion.
Yeah, and I love that moment where he's talking with Rocky, and he's just like, "Listen, no reason for either of us to get hurt here. Don't try to cheap shot me. We'll get through this."
That's usually the kind of conversation Matt and I have before recording on each other's podcasts.
Don't hurt me. We're gonna get through this.
You know what's funny? Ken and I have 4 almost kind of similar, and then Matt has it pretty high. To be clear, I don't want people to think I don't like 4. It's just like I've watched 4 so many times, it's almost diluted because I decided to watch the other ones. I feel like there is a camp, though, when we talk about Rocky movies in the franchise, that people love or hate 4, it seems like. And I don't know why.
Yeah. Because I think for some people, that's like the breaking point of the whole series.
Yeah,
because like
exactly.
it's like it goes so far over the top and being kind of ridiculous. Like the villain is very over the top.
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. T's over the top too. So I don't,
Oh, is he?
It's like,
is he? I mean,
a little bit.
I think Glover's kind of a badass.
Oh, I mean, I love him, but I was telling Ken, I think, or somebody else, I'm like, he's kind of a one-note villain. We know nothing about him. You know, he comes out of nowhere. He has no backstory. He seems to only be obsessed with fighting. Like, we know nothing. He's not a fleshed out character, but I love that Mr. T plays it like he's gonna kill somebody.
I'm biased because I'm from Chicago. I live in Chicago, and he's from Chicago, so I'm kind of biased. I'm rooting for Clubber most of the movie, but yeah.
I'll say this about 4: it's so removed from all of them, even 5, just because it's the only one that doesn't have the original Rocky theme in it. Vince DiCola did the score.
But still has great songs.
Yes. Oh, Hearts on Fire.
Yeah.
Hearts on Fire. I love more than Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah, whenever I want to like annoy somebody, I'll randomly just go Hearts on Fire.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, it's weird that 4 is like the most removed, but like you can't watch 5 without 4 because like the whole brain damage thing. Which it's funny, like it's at that point they finally recognize, oh wait, brain trauma and damage is a big thing in boxing.
Yeah.
Also,
finally at this point,
I feel like 4. I think a lot. My conspiracy theory, among a bunch of others in film, I feel like 4 was universally loved until ESPN, like a few years ago, made that mock like commercial about where people on actual ESPN were talking about Rocky 4 like it was a real event that happened.
Oh, wasn't that a college humor thing?
Yeah, it was a college humor thing. It became real popular on the internet, and I think once people were like, oh, now the mainstream is talking about Rocky 4 like this, it's not cool to like Rocky 4 anymore. And I felt like that's where the camps got divided. That's my conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Just like Hollywood like didn't want Taxi Driver to win because they knew that the Sigma movement would be too strong to contain into the next millennia. I'm convinced.
Wow, they were thinking ahead.
They were yeah. They're like, look, we're about 40 or 50 years ahead on this, but I'm seeing this happening, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
No, let me just say amazing. So one last thing about Rocky 4. I know we got to jump into 3 here, but I want to say Ivan Drago, I think, is a great follow villain to Clubber Lang because we sort of replaced this cocky loudmouth with this just stoic machine of a man who is just like a tool of like the Soviet government.
Yeah. Also, it's like the first two encounters for Rocky was like this like lightweight speed fighter, and then the next 2 fighters are huge heavyweight monsters. Yeah. One natural and one unnatural.
Yeah. Also, Chris, one last thing. Did you Matt and I went to go see it. Did you see the director's cut of Rocky 4?
Oh, no, I didn't. I remember there was a big deal about that when it first came out. And I remember that was like a big thing, and I was just at that point I took the stance of the traditionalist where I'm just like watching the original instead.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's fine.
It was fine. I thought they changed. It was like, I don't know. It changed some stuff. It adds some more backstory. I think about Apollo talking about taking the fight, like should he even take the fight?
Yeah, there's a lot of footage that we didn't originally see. I mean, all the story beats are still the same.
Right.
The greatest sin that Matt and I agree is the most horrible thing they did. They cut the robot out entirely.
No way. That's like part of the fun of 4.
I love how outraged you are.
Yeah,
That's
kind of fun.
Outrage. I know.
And also without the robot, there's not much Polly.
There really is. He's kind of like diminished. Yeah, like I think 3's
Share
like
so
his
many
last
scenes
beat.
with the robot.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm upset like a racist didn't get much of a platform in the sequel.
I mean,
we're upset for the robot.
It's the robot. It's the robot we're upset about.
But Stallone just apparently hates the robot, and everyone else loves the robot. And I remember he cut that out. It felt like a project he did when he got bored during COVID. It sounded like, because there was a little like making of documentary where it seemed like he was just like in this office for like months and months, like recutting 4. I don't really, now that I've seen both, I don't see any reason to stop watching the original cut.
Yeah,
like,
I'm sticking with the original.
Yeah, the director's cut's fine. I was worried he cut the montages because it's not like he was going to change all this stuff. He didn't cut, so I don't get what he was doing, but it's fine. But I would stick with the original. But
honestly, I honestly think he had a vendetta against that robot, and he just wanted it out.
I think he did.
He just saw the memes. Is like, I can't have my movie memed anymore.
Yeah.
No. Also, I'm sorry to keep talking about 4 here, but
I don't know when we'll get a chance to talk about 4 again. To be honest with you, Ken, so this might be the
okay.
time.
Good. Okay, so do you guys know the story of how Stallone came across that robot? Apparently,
I thought in the 80s just robots were a thing, to be honest. Like the Star Wars
everywhere.
effect. I thought it was like the Star Wars effect.
They were roaming the streets. People just found them.
So apparently that robot is like, of course it's not as advanced as it's portrayed in the movie, but apparently it's like a tool to help kids who are developmentally disabled. And Sylvester Stallone's one son, I think Sergio Stallone, is severely autistic.
Wow.
And he got that robot, and it sort of helped his son. And then he's just like, you know what? I'm putting you in a movie.
Wow, that is insane. It makes people who make fun of that robot feel like pieces of shit.
Yeah, exactly. So Stallone, you owe that robot a lot.
That's
true.
insane.
It's true.
It's weird. I wonder, because I remember when 4 was coming out, I remember thinking, like, was there other director's cuts, like, of the other Rocky movies, or why did they focus on 4?
I don't know, just 4. I don't know why. Like, I think it's the robot. I really think Ken's on something.
So.
Like,
you know what's crazy? There was a game, especially in like, a post Last of Us TV show that just came out. So I feel like games finally are getting more of like a relevance in like mediums. There was a video game, just the Rocky Balboa video game that was on PlayStation 2. And when you played the sequel video game, Rocky Legends, you actually got to play the protagonist of Rocky, Apollo, Clubber, and Ivan. And
not Tommy Gunn though.
But not Tommy Gunn, yeah, which was weird. But like all of them were canon or official canon, except for Ivan Drago's story. Because at the end of the game, when you play as of Ivan Drago, you beat Rocky Balboa, which is obviously against the canon. But to fit with ours, 3, Apollo or Clubber Lang is actually incarcerated in Cook County Prison, which is like, not that far from where my apartment is right now. Actually, that's
Matt, I told you about that, didn't I?
Did you? I don't know.
I told Matt about the game Rocky Legends.
Oh, I don't know.
You did. I know you love that game. Yeah.
Anyway.
I do play a lot of games. I never played the Rocky game though. But yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. I didn't know that, Matt. That's good to know. But yeah, like I was like, oh yeah, I remember playing these games growing up, and like I remember like these weird backstories of these characters, and like the Drago and Clubber Lang ones were always the more interesting ones, because the Apollo Creed ones, they're very like, I don't know. It goes without saying, like, obviously this guy is like the best ever. Like he's like the Michael Jordan of this universe until he's beaten by Rocky, which makes it part 2 feel so incredibly big. But I always found it interesting where, like we said at the beginning of the episode, where Clubber Lang kind of just shows up. But if you play those games, you get those backstories. It makes sense why he's so pissy and so upset. It's like this guy was incarcerated. I don't know if the game tells you completely why he was, but he was doing fights inside the prison, which I could believe in the 70s and 80s. And then he gets out, has potential, obviously, trying to get back on his feet. Well, what did Rocky do to get on his feet? He was a fighter, like, and he had the talent, obviously. And if you see like this, this white, small guy who, seems to be like having the golden apple, of course you're going to feel like pissy. And that's why I like Clubber Lang, because I feel like there's a lot beneath the surface of his character that they don't really mention. And that's what I think Rocky 3 is my favorite, is like you get so many different themes. I don't know, it's a movie where you see like there's always an overarching theme in one movie, but I feel like whenever I watch Rocky 3, there's so much stuff that's going on. Like it's things about like masculinity, what type of things of masculinity, things about trauma and how do you cope with trauma, things about like never forgetting who you are, but also like not getting lost in like the success that you have. And like, also like the family dynamics, friendship dynamics. societal pressures. Like there's so many different themes of Rocky 3. And I think that's why I really enjoy it, because even though you get all those really important points, you still get a very entertaining and very well choreographed film. I think my favorite fight scenes, and I feel like what's funny about Rocky, you can watch it two different ways, because I used to do this as a kid. You can watch the movie as like the drama story, or you can watch it as like just watching all the fights, and you'll be equally satisfied, obviously.
Yeah.
And as an adult, when you watch them just and binge them, it's like, oh, this human drama, human condition stuff is really good. But damn, the fight scenes are so good at the same time. And Rocky 3 is my favorite because you get two of them that are amazing.
Yeah. Also, Rocky 3 is the only one, unless you count the street fight from Rocky 5, is the only one where you see the full final fight in its entirety. And it's not broken up into a montage because it's just 3 rounds.
Right.
Oh, yeah. You know why I think 3 is my favorite, because I feel like 3 still has like one foot planted in the like more realistic parts of 1 and 2, but it has another foot planted toward kind of the craziness of Rocky 4. Because I feel like it almost feels like when Mickey dies, that's like the point where the movie like that's the thing holding on to like kind of the more realism of 1 and 2, and then like hanging out with Apollo and all the training montages feels like 4 a little bit. And I get the best of both worlds. I feel like it's like I get like the gritty realism of 1 and 2 mixed with like the bombastic stuff of 4. And it's like I just feel like it gives me everything I want in a Rocky movie, and it moves super well. Like I was watching it again, I've seen it a few times, but like because there's so much going on, like you said, like it's all these like different, like there's no boring parts at all. It's just like, okay, now he's gonna fight friggin' Hulk Hogan, and then
which we haven't even talked about. That could be a whole episode.
Mr. T is super entertaining. The stuff with Mickey is like heartbreaking though. Oh my god, like when Mickey dies in 3, it is painful, and the way Stallone plays that so well, like that's the part that makes you really sad. It's like Stallone plays that like almost like a kid who's like losing a parent or something. Like it's heartbreaking. I was like, man, so this really gives me everything I want. I'm cheering, I'm sad. I was like I love the montage stuff. It's ridiculous, but it's so much fun. I love that him and Apollo start their friendship in this one. That's why I do. It does really kill me that he dies in 4. Like Mickey's old, I get it, but Apollo should not be dead in 4.
No.
Like kind of wish they went the route of like in 4, like Apollo got like put into a brief coma or something else happened.
I mean, it could be like the friend in Bloodsport, not killed but severely injured.
Oh yeah, and like he should be dead, and they come back at the end. It's like, oh, he's like a bandage around his head. You're doing fine, see? But like I just love like their friendship. Because I would not, if you're watching these back when they came out, I feel like the last thing you'd expect is for them to become friends in this movie after they've been fighting for the past 2 movies. And,
right.
Like, the friendship feels pretty genuine, honestly. Like. Yeah, it doesn't feel forced to me at all. So,
and I'm a sucker for enemies becoming friends. It's one of my favorite tropes in movies, and this is one of my favorite examples. And I just love the moment when when Rocky is in the old gym, and he just hits the speed bag, and you just hear Apollo's voice in the distance just go, "That's not the way you do it." And it's just such a great moment.
Yeah, I love it. This movie's like the Avengers of the Rocky universe. I just love it. It's like Captain America and Iron Man. Just so for the kids that are listening, of course.
Well, I love that you say
together.
that.
Yeah,
I love that you say that, and you make like a modern reference, because when I watched this movie again, I caught something that I never caught before. When he's about to fight Thunderlips,
which is a badass name.
Yes. Mickey says, no one would do this much for charity. And Rocky goes, Bob Hope would. And I'm just like, haha, that's a reference I don't get because it's 2023.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Bob Hope was a comedian, but.
Right. You know what's funny? I've been watching, oddly, before we prepped for this, like stuff like about like interviews of like Stallone in like the 80s and stuff like that, and like post Rocky, and even when he's older, and he like talk about why he did the Rocky movies, and he references because of the 70s was such a dark time, and he loved movies in like the 40s and 50s that were more uplifting of sorts. Obviously, he wasn't watching the noir films, but like the more like musicals and stuff. And he said he wanted to make something that was uplifting to counteract the very like morally ambiguous 70s films, which I don't blame him for. And then it kind of ushered in like the kind of more optimistic 80s and like carefreeness of it. So like good on him. And Rocky 3, I feel like embodies that kind of mentality more than even the first movie. The first one and the first two, why I love them so much. If you just watch them just back to back and nothing else, it's like a story of like hope and just taking a chance, just being grateful for the living in the moment and the opportunity. But what I love about Rocky 3, and I think it's my favorite, is because it feels like when we watch Rocky 1 and 2, I don't think as Rocky is this badass that can actually go out there and win. I don't feel like he's even a boxer. I feel like he's like this desperate guy who has to take a career path where he has to use his body to make a living. And in Rocky 3, and I love the training with Apollo, you finally as an audience get to see for the first time, you know, Rocky fulfilling a potential to be one of the best in his sport. Because like the training he did was like it was limited to like what Mickey wanted to train him in and the limitations that Rocky had for himself. Because like remember in Rocky 1 and 2 when he's doing his training montages, he's doing abnormal things which we all love because it's iconic. But whenever he does his runs and his sprints, he looks freaking fast. Like the kids are chasing after him and he sprints past them. He's sprinting past the boat, you know, on the dock. But then in Rocky 3, you realize this guy's not fast at all. He has like no speed. Like he's dragging ass and like he's just so like behind. You know, it's like how the hell he beat Apollo is like still like dumbfounding. But like, but you still see him train. He also, I think Stallone looks amazing in this movie in terms of like physique. I think this is his best look in terms of like style, his like fighting, and like obviously his drip is impeccable. I love the gold and black. I think it looks awesome. But like. And I just think you see a different type of Rocky than you see in the first two. You see like a fulfilling of potential type of Rocky that you never thought possible. And then, of course, when you get to 4, it just does feel kind of like supernatural to a point. But I feel like Rocky 3, it feels like the peak of like his athleticism at his age, which I think I've really gravitated the most on. It does feel like a prime Rocky of sorts. I can't think of like any sort of comparison to it. Maybe it's more or less like I'm trying to think. I don't know. This I can't think of like a prime like you know fictional character in like a peak physical form like this. I don't know. Maybe like Captain America and like I guess the Winter Soldier. You know, like you see him in the first movie, and then you see the second one. He's like, oh, this guy's completely badass or something like that. You know, it feels something like that of sorts, and I think that's why I like Rocky 3. Because like you learn more about the character more than we've already known in 2 freaking movies, which is crazy. It's a crazy thing in franchises. Like you think about the Fast and Furious franchises, like we know who these characters are. Like they can't like, you know, supersede the expectations we have for them already until you do like some sort of like writers, you know, like this plot device to make them feel like, you know, over the top. Rocky 3, it feels natural. You know, he has this. He's gassing himself up, or Mickey's been gassing him up for so long. And then he has like that trauma of like, oh, am I actually this good person? And then like, you know, external people come to his aid and make him fulfill his potential. I think that's what's really great about Rocky 3. But yeah, it also makes me realize in Rocky 3 more than any other movie of the franchise, like, God, I'm out of shape. Like, I'm 26 and I don't think I'll be anywhere near as like in shape as that.
I don't. How old? Ken, do you know how old Stallone was when he made this movie at this time?
So I looked into it because I know in the first one he was about 30. So I think in this one he was 35.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I can still turn it around, baby.
Yeah, that's why they said Rocky making a comeback at 35. The odds are against them,
right.
You know,
that's right. Yeah. It's like, oh man, because athletes, you're in the mid 30s. It's like you might as well be like 75. It seems like
seriously.
Maybe a baseball player could get it, but it's like those guys seem to hang on longer. But yeah, it's so funny too. That's the big difference in 1 and 2. I feel like 1 and 2 he's in good shape, but 3 he's like in insane shape. 3 and 4 he's like so crazy cut.
I mean, in 4 he's a bodybuilder.
Yeah,
that is not what a boxer looks like.
Like I don't think he's technically even a heavyweight in 4. I think he's a lightweight because he's always weird Rocky nerdism, but like he's always hovered around the heavyweight 200-pound mark, but he was always heavier in the first 2. But in Rocky 3, he pushes that. He's like 202 or 201, and then I think in Rocky 4 he's like 199, 198 in terms of like being a heavyweight.
Which the announcers in Rocky 3 are like, oh my God, they keep saying like he's cut so much weight, he must be down 20 pounds.
Oh my God, I love the announcers in Rocky 3.
He looks like a middleweight.
Yeah, what's his name? Stu something in Rocky 3. Like that announcer, the second fight, I love him. The first fight announcement in Rocky 3, I'm not a big fan of. Also, I love the announcer in Rocky 3 with the crazy like mustache during the Hulk Hogan and Rocky.
The Hulk Hogan fight, yeah. I love that one.
I love that.
I love he's like at the end he's just like, we'll see you next year, thank God.
You know what's crazy in a post like WWE universe that we live in now, like we know everything's scripted, maybe even real sports is possibly scripted. There's my other like, you know, conspiracy theory. Nobody in this charity match knew what the hell was going on, like in terms of like scriptedness. I'm like, So it was like Hulk Hogan just literally beating the crap out of Rocky and other people
and security guards.
Yeah, and like committing like actual crimes.
Yeah, I was thinking like, my God, he could probably go to jail for the stuff he's doing here. He's like throwing people in the crowd, like. But
No
then at the
one
end, he
knew.
acts like Hulk Hogan acts like it was all scripted, like a wrestling thing. Where he turns to him
Mhm.
and was like, "Oh, it was put on a show." It's like you could talk about that before we do it. Like, that's
Yeah,
how
like you
wrestling
could have let
works.
me know what
Like,
was gonna happen.
Yeah, the wrestlers talk about what they're gonna do before they go do the match. It's like he's just like, I'm gonna wing it, and then they tell everybody afterwards it's fine.
Right.
Like that's an
Also,
insane sequence.
I heard
Like,
Hulk
that's a
Hogan.
very-
I heard Hulk
yeah.
Hogan with method in this movie. Like he actually said, "Hit me with a fucking chair too."
hmm Well, Stallone said apparently that was the toughest fight he ever had to choreograph because gravity is a lot harder to choreograph than throwing punches.
Yeah, apparently he actually lifted Hulk Hogan up, but he said he couldn't like deadlift him. Hogan had to jump. Like, which
Because
is
he's
what
like
I mean, that's how
5'10" at most, right?
Yeah, it's like this really highlights how tiny Stallone is and how giant Hulk Hogan is. Because like Hogan was like always a big guy, but he was always around other big guys. But then it's like you see him just around normal human beings, you're like, oh my God, he was a
And
giant.
Stallone is just eye level with his nipples there, and it's great. I love at the end of it they say this has been declared a draw. I'm like, it's a little charitable to Rocky, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
he
how
did
was
lift
it-
him up and toss him.
Yeah, what was the point scale to figure out who was going to be the winner? Was no one got pinned, no one got knocked out?
Right. I didn't even know what they were going to try to do. Like, was there pins involved? Was it punches? I don't know what was it. It's a crazy sequence. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it's very fun. It's a
Also,
very
I
fun
love how
sequence.
Clubber Lang actually spent his hard-earned money to watch like Rocky suffer. That's my big thing about Clubber Lang. Like throughout the opening montages, like he just pays willingly to see if Rocky's gonna lose or not. I don't know if that's like him like doing his research, if that's what boxers do, is like watch their opponents. But like him to pay a ticket to watch a celebrity match, I'm like, what are you gonna gain out of that? Like,
That's
just
true.
like
That's
you know what I
true.
mean?
Yeah, yeah. The other
also-
one, it's probably hard to get tape on guys at that time, so you had to go watch it happen.
Oh,
Or
Mm-hmm.
no kidding. Also, I love that because Matt said like for normal size people. So like my 5'5" listeners out there, like my short boys, like you're in good hands right now. Like you're normal height. Oh my God. Okay, so the big question is, was Eye of the Tiger, was that written for the movie or was that just happened to have come out right before Rocky 3?
that I googled this actually because it is.
Thank God
written
you
for
did the research
movie.
for this episode.
I did
'cause
the
it.
research.
Okay.
I did because I was questioning. I was like, wait, did this happen to work out and they worked in the movie, or no?
Right.
They wrote it for the movie. Is what I read.
Oh, thank
And
God.
Apollo
Wasn't-
works it in the line about like you used to have the eye of the tiger. Like it's like you just
And wasn't the original theme going to be "You're the Best Around," which eventually got used for the Karate Kid?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
God.
You're right. Yeah.
Well, how come we didn't get a charity match where the Karate Kid fights Rocky?
I mean, both directed by John Avildsen, so
Oh yeah.
There
he
you
loves
go.
those fighting Italians.
Oh goodness. So I love how like in the beginning we were talking about like how the beginning, like the first half of Rocky 3 is kind of like saying a farewell to like the more grounded first two movies, because like you get the stuff with like Mick and like him talking about like Rocky carrying him. I love the line where he's like, you can't beat Glover because you haven't been hungry since you won the belt. And he's like, he'll knock you into tomorrow, Rock. You know, it's like very much like a la Rocky 1 or 2 Mickey quotes, which I have a few of them like, you know, framed on my bedside too, you know, sleep motivation when I wake up. But then like after his passing and everything, first of all, the training montage or the training idea that Rocky had right before Clubber for the first fight, stupidest idea I've ever thought. Like who said, yeah, Rocky, have an open gym training session? But then again, I guess that's what Apollo did in the first one. So like
It didn't seem as populated though.
No, it didn't.
It looked like it was just press that was allowed to come in and take a few pictures, but no, he's got fans coming up buying merch and
yeah.
It was like, this is a horrible idea, Rocky. Like you should even know better. This is not a good idea.
Right.
Like,
That's my gripe. But like, it feels like that's like still part of like, you know, kissing goodbye to that old first two movies and that kind of mentality. And when Apollo does show up, like Ken said, like that's not how you punch it. It feels like that's kind of setting like the tone for like what the rest of the franchise is going to be. It's going to be more like training montage, more like of its time, I guess, like that 80s vibe. You know, it feels like it's Miami Vice when they're training in LA. It really does. And I kind of enjoy that. Like, it feels like you're getting two different movies into one, you know? It's like, that's what I've really enjoyed. I feel like Rocky 4 is very, how do I say this? That's to keep talking about 4. It feels like a very downer movie, and then it becomes an uplifting movie and like near the end of the movie. You know, it's just like beat after beat, like it's such a downer. But like Rocky 3, there's always some sort of like weird optimism. And then you get like the downs, but like you're like, my boy's gonna come back up. Like I know Rocky's gonna turn it around. Also, I think this is one of like Talia Shire's like strongest performances in the entire franchise too.
Yeah.
I feel like from the beginning all the way to the end, I feel like a lot of people, and I feel like it's the people who don't care as much about the Rocky movies, they just see it as like a cool like boxing movie franchise. I feel like Talia Shire as Adrian always gets a bad rap because like she's always in the background of the fighting. She's always kind of pushing Rocky to retire and always saying like you can't win in Rocky 4. Like the first two, like you don't have to prove anything to everyone. But she's always kind of like looked out for Rocky when Rocky's not even looking out for himself. And especially in this one, she's looking out for his mental health. And I think that's really important, especially in 2023, because no one else was doing that. And I mean, everyone's looking out for his physical health, but Adrian is looking out for his mental health and not pushing him to retire. She wasn't even talking about his retirement Rocky 3 like she is in 4. But she's even saying like, we have all these things. We have these things you have to worry about. We need to worry about you and you need to worry about yourself. I love that in Rocky 3. That beach scene where they're confronting and talking to each other is one of the best things of this entire franchise. That
is a good scene.
Yeah.
I do
and it's it's really one of the first moments where, I mean, Adrian, like in the first movie, she has that moment where she finally stands up to Polly. But this is like, excuse me, this is the first one where she like really has really great agency in her role and is able to like call him out and like kick his ass into high gear.
Yeah, right. I mean, I love how she says like I live with a fighter, so she's like, I'm kind of
he's like, how'd you get so tough?
I love that. And it just really like turns around. I think the montage of Rocky 3 is just really great. Like also I just love like Apollo yelling at Rock. I don't know. Apollo's like my unofficial favorite character in the entire franchise. He just is like peak masculinity or in terms of like positive masculinity, like he's a guy who's very charismatic, very, proud of himself and like sure of himself, but he's also like very accepting of his faults and his shortcomings and wanting to help people, even like this guy kicked your ass and took everything away from you and publicly humiliated you, but like you want to be friends with him and help him out and like build him up. That's awesome.
And it took the second movie for him to sort of get humbled that way. But I do love when Clubber and Rocky have the first fight, when Apollo walks in and goes to shake Clubber's hand, and he's just like, get out of here, you has been. And then he goes to Rocky, he's just like, give everyone a present, drop this chump.
Yeah. Yeah. And even a Rocky, God, we can't stop talking about fucking Rocky 4. But like, I love Rocky 4. The biggest flaw
They're all
for him,
so great.
Yeah. Like the thing, like they go hand in hand, but like, I love how he's always like I can, his biggest flaw is like, he wants to be young and he's like, we're too young to retire. He says in Rocky 3. And it's like, you should probably start hanging it up at some point, And in Rocky 4, like this is his biggest flaw, but he still goes out like the same way he's always been. He's never like changed himself or anybody else, which is like the flaw that Rocky had in Rocky 3. Like he's always building up to whatever the societal pressures he had on himself, which I think, I won't get to Creed, but like that's the one thing I've always kind of got annoyed with Creed was the whole Adonis and Creed relationship. It kind of feels like it diminishes Apollo's sort of character in some way, but then again, it was the 70s and 80s, so it's like maybe free love and all that fun stuff. I wouldn't know. I still don't know what relations with a woman's like in 2023. But
also the Creed movies never address Apollo Creed has 2 other kids that we're never hearing anything about.
No kidding, right?
That's true. Yeah. Where are those kids at? I don't know. I thought Apollo was just like in a Nick Cannon situation where he has like lots of kids among different women that we don't know about. Like he's just got a lot of kids running around. I couldn't tell. I
can't wait for the next like subsequent series where it's just called Italian Stallion. It's about Rocky's illegitimate children as well. That's the next franchise move.
Yeah.
Or Paulie's kids.
Finds out.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's like the Palpatine thing in Star Wars, right? But it's with Paulie instead. Like Paulie actually had relations with women and had a kid that we didn't know about.
What if it's half robot, half Polly?
Yeah, you beat me to it, damn it.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Ken. I didn't know you were going to say
it's like a time cop kind of like misspliced kind of action.
Oh, dear God. What a nightmare.
Meanwhile, Milo Ventimiglia is just like sitting in the background like, what the fuck is my life at this point?
Oh, Milo.
What do I do? It's funny. Like, I know we could easily make fun of like the montage with like Rocky and Apollo, and like everyone makes fun of like, oh, it's like 2 guys running on the beach, and it's a lot of like it's just a lot of like glistening muscles and like all that stuff. But like
bro hug in the waves.
Yeah.
You never hug your bro in the ocean before?
We should.
Matt, we do that all the time.
I was gonna
You
say.
can't live 20 minutes away from the
I was
ocean.
gonna. Don't
What
you
are we
guys
doing?
live like in the near the coast? Like you guys should be hugging all the time.
We guys are doing that this summer. Just
Yeah, exactly. Got to get these bodies right.
I mean, we can make fun of it, but like this time I was like, this is a really good example of like a really positive male friendship. Like
Yeah.
it's a really like
Right?
good showing of that. Make all the jokes you want. I think it's a very good friendship that came out of being enemies than being friends, and it feels like I'm like I love these guys as friends. It makes it even sadder that Apollo dies in 4. It's like it's like it sucks. Poor Rocky. I was thinking like, man, this guy just loses everybody. Like it's just like Mickey, Apollo,
Adrian, yeah.
Yeah, Paulie's still around though. Paulie, the guy who looks like he'd be dead, like by like Rocky 5, somehow is still kicking like around now.
I feel like Paulie's kept around by Rocky to remind himself, this is what I could have been if I wasn't who I am.
I also think Paulie just lives out for the spite of it. Also, I just want to say, I said we got to get our bodies right, but I forgot for the lore of this episode of Inside the Sequel, we all have 6-packs. That's right. Sorry.
Yeah,
right.
We're drinking beers and
packs,
having
though.
6-packs.
The 6-pack's not good enough, Ken. We want 8-packs.
Exactly.
We got to keep working. We got to get those 2 extra to pop.
So we get past the training and Rocky gets his ass beat. Obviously, there's conditions to why he gets his ass beat. In my opinion, I feel like the Mickey stuff really did affect him mentally, and I feel like that's a big thing in this movie. It's all about like the mental health and the mental strain that men go through, or just like people in general go through. And then when I love the part where Apollo's training him, and when he's fighting him, and he's like, "Damn it, Rock! Like, do something. There is no tomorrow." I love when Rocky's like looking in the mirror, and he's like just down in the dumps. And then he eventually decides to turn around, like we said, with the Adrian stuff. And when he starts training, God, those montages are so freaking cool. Like the way Rocky trains, like what we've seen, especially like from like the first one to the third one, it's just insane. Like, how much more the budget of the movies have gotten into, but two, the choreographing of this movie is insane.
Yeah, I love him and Apollo doing like the sort of choreographed like dance footwork and
and the slow-mo. Like there's a lot of slow-mos in this movie.
A lot of slow-mo.
But I love them. Like they're like impactful slow-mos, It's not like Rocky hits a punch and goes, "Whoa, I punched too fast," and then it's a slow-mo where we run into each other to fall, like in Rocky 2. They're like
a little melodramatic, but I dug it.
When I can only imagine, like, of course you have to slow-mo Clubber laying punching Rocky. I mean, that guy's fucking throwing haymakers the entire time. Like, you know what I mean? Also love it every time when Clubber throws a punch, he just goes, "Urgh, urgh," like he's grunting. I watched it with subtitles, and every time Clubber was punching, it said male groaning the whole time. Yeah. It's like, I mean, and I was like, I can picture Mr. T just grunting the whole time.
Also, I don't think Clubber Lang ever throws like a straight jab it's all hooks.
Yeah. I also like how his manager, comparison to who's in Rocky's corner and who's in Clubber's corner. I feel like these are just guys like he was friends with, and they just said, "Just kick his ass, just kill him. He's scared. Just beat him up." Like what strategic stuff is going through to Clubber.
Yeah, I love how Clubber trains all alone. He even says at the unveiling of Rocky's statues, "I train alone. I work alone." And so your corner guys, do you just hire them just to come out for your fights and that's it?
Seems that way. Yeah, it was like he just trains in like his own like solo prison, basically.
Yeah.
He probably calls like his iron prison and goes in there and locks himself in.
It's crazy.
Nobody bother me.
It's crazy how toxic Clubber Lang is. Like how he forces his way into a title fight, like the demasculating of Rocky.
Catcalling Adrian.
Yeah. Oh my God. And just like the aggressive shouting all the time. And like his conspiracy theory, which is a key word of this entire podcast today. It's just like he'll say like the media doesn't want me to be like the champion because they can't handle me. And it's like, you want a paper champion and stuff like that. And it's like, I'm sure some people are like, yeah, you know what? That is right. Like he's been kicking ass. Why isn't he champ? And stuff like that. I love his that kind of like very, very aggressive opposition to the forefront. And I think if you put like I can't think of an actor that's so like cool, but like obviously very evil, like Mr. T is in this movie. Like he doesn't like take a break at any moment in this movie.
No,
like even in interviews, like I love his movement. His progression is like, I don't want anybody to fuck around with me. I want to just get my job done and be champ. Like smashes even cameras. And I'm like, buddy, are you gonna pay for those at some point? Like, I think he just like destroyed somebody's like livelihood. And then it's like when he's champion, he's like a little bit more calm, but he's still like very aggressive. Like everyone's afraid of him. He's like that king that nobody wanted to be king. And then you're like, oh, I guess I gotta like serve him.
Yeah. So I read, and I'm not sure how true this is, but supposedly Mr. T took his mom to see this movie because I think this was Mr. T's first movie. It says introducing Mr. T.
Because he was did he even do A-Team before this? Or was
I looked at
after?
A-Team was like the year after this.
Okay.
I thought it was before this, but yeah.
Okay.
It's like his first thing, yeah.
Yeah, so supposedly, again, I don't know how true this is. He took his mom to see this movie, and she like got mad at him and said, "I didn't raise you to be this way." And he's just like, "Mom, it was acting. It's a movie." And she was just like, "I don't care."
Yeah, I'm not gonna let anybody take what I got. I love that. I love that. Like that. I like. He's like, Balboa's stupid. He runs right straight at you or whatever like that. And he's just like,
which is a legitimate criticism of his boxing. Like Ken can probably, I know Ken did some like training in boxing. Like I've always heard this criticism from real boxers or people that know the sport. Rocky's a terrible boxer because
Rocky is a terrible, no defense whatsoever.
No, he doesn't believe in defense.
Ken's like me when I watch Yu-Gi-Oh and I criticize the Yu-Gi-Oh dueling on the anime. I'm like, that's not how you duel in real life.
Oh, Chris, I could provide the same insight there.
Yeah, there you go.
So many times I'm like, that's not what that card does at all.
Yeah, there you go. Hence the reason why I said I don't know what female touch is like because I play Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yes. Well, I'm the same way. Matt,
there goes
my
more to
whole
my
marriage
narrative.
is a sham.
Yeah, your marriage is a sham. That was all a fake wedding. I never saw that woman again.
Matt's over here with his six pack. He's like, I don't know what you guys are even talking about right now.
I don't know. No, I was like, I know Pokemon cards, but not Yu-Gi.
Oh gosh, why you gotta be cooler than us? Stop.
I don't know. Talking about Beyblade.
Bro, put that arena away. Nobody wants to see that right now. So we talk about like, what's funny because if you think about it, Paulie, what does Rocky say? Paulie, you're like a crazy brother to me and stuff like that, which is funny because he's with his sister. But it makes sense because like Paulie is like that crazy brother you're kind of embarrassed of, but you always have to carry around with you, like the baggage. But then it's like Apollo ends up being kind of like that brother that's supportive, like the good kind of brother that becomes that of Apollo with Rocky. And I love the part where once they get to the training and they get to that final fight and Apollo like says, "Hey, real quick, let me give you my trunks," and Rocky's like, whoa, hold on,
whoa, bro.
Yeah, it's like, I can't be wearing this. I love that because like, it's, I don't know, like, I like the gold and black because I feel like that kind of shows like Rocky's in his prime. He can afford, these colors besides just like the red and white trim that he's been wearing the last two movies. And then it's like the iconic look of Rocky is like the red, white, and blue, trunks he wears that people think is just in 4, but he wears them in 3. People forget that, but it's also because it's like, it's showing the completion of like their friendship is like, they're almost like symbiotic in a way. Like Rocky now, after this point now in the rest of the franchise, fights just like Apollo did, And I think that's really cool that this movie kind of bridges these two type of like worlds together. I don't know, I just really like it. I just get goosebumps when I think about it because like I think Apollo Creed is probably the best character in the entire franchise in my opinion. I just really love Carl Weathers. But yeah, I like that moment. Again, this movie is like campy at some sprinkled moments, and then you get like some really cool like, oh bro, really?
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome,
It's like Matt said, it's got one foot in the grounded reality that keeps the emotion, but then another foot in the over the top action.
Here's my
Which
thing,
is
though.
why it's my favorite. Yeah.
It,
It's got everything.
Right. Also, the little things that the Rocky franchise does. Like you get Stu as like the announcer for like the Rocky fights all the way from the first one and through on. The announcers, like the announcer in the first Apollo or first Clubber versus Rocky fight, I don't like that announcer, but the announcer they bring in for the second fight between Rocky and Clubber was the same announcer I think in Rocky 2 as well. And it's like, I like this guy. Like, I feel like when I see this guy, Rocky's going to kick some ass, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then in Rocky 4, they get a guy who looks similar to him, but speaks Russian the whole time.
Yeah.
Let's see. I try to think what else, like more other than like when the fight does happen. Okay, seriously. When Sylvester or Rocky like pulls out of that corner and just like gets the fight going, that fight is fast. It's like less than 20 minutes. But it doesn't skip anything. Like it's just like hankering away, just punch. It's like did Stallone just do like all the choreograph like for it? Because like, at the end of the fight, they say Rocky looks exhausted and everything like that. And it's like, yeah, like if I was an actor, I'd be fucking tired now. I'm getting tired of watching the fight because he's moving so fast. He's like burning so much steam. It's like, geez.
Ken, did you say, I hear it's 4 after we start recording, that this is the only Rocky movie besides 5 that shows the whole fight in its entirety?
Shows the whole fight. It's not broken up into a montage.
Exactly, which I kind of was annoyed with because like you get skipped through a bunch of the rounds in the first 2 movies, but I think is that added maybe to the drama of like this is going to be a long fight where there's like a lot of back and forth. You can't really tell who's going to win.
Yeah, whereas in this one, you hear Apollo say when they're looking over the fight, they're like, we got to take him out quick.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which they actually do, which I liked is like, okay, they followed up on that thing they said earlier. Yeah. It is a fast fight. I was looking like, the time, I was like, wow, they don't have a lot of time left. We're not even at the fight yet. Because I forget how fast the final fight goes. But I mean, it's okay. Because I mean, if it goes 3 rounds, like it doesn't take that long. So, like they don't most, I don't think most, can't probably tell me again, most boxing matches probably don't go the full 12 rounds or whatever. Like I can't imagine.
I mean,
how many.
I've never actually seen like I've actually never watched an entire like boxing match, not even like the Floyd Mayweather stuff. Like
I'm like no expert. Yeah, I think one time like 10 years ago we all paid to watch that Mayweather Pacquiao fight everyone was talking about, and we were all like super bored because we were like, wait, this. I think I was like, this isn't like Rocky because I've never watched boxing. So the thing I said earlier 2 seconds ago was wrong. I don't know people, but like because Mayweather's like a boxer that plays a lot of defense.
Yeah.
So it's not super exciting to watch. It's smart for him, but it's not super exciting.
Listen,
thing. Like it's not a movie boxing match.
A lot of people talk trash about Floyd Money Mayweather. I still think he's possibly. I mean, Muhammad Ali, a lot of people view as the GOAT, but in my lifetime, I still think Mayweather is probably the best. But anyways, that's going into reality.
I mean, speaking of Mason Line Dixon earlier, isn't he supposed to be like the Floyd Mayweather of this universe in a sort of way, like the commercialization of the boxing sport?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when EA Sports in the video game franchises, they used to have like the fight night or the fight or like the boxing video games, like the legitimate boxing games.
Oh yeah.
And you could like play like Muhammad Ali and like Mike Tyson and like all these other like legitimate, and then Rocky Marciano and who is it that Robert De Niro portrays in Raging Bull, drunk alcohol?
Oh, Jake LaMotta.
Jake LaMotta, which ironically I always chose him. That's my toxic trait, Obviously, when I would play those games, I would always be Jake LaMotta. But I always thought that was really cool, and I learned more about the sport of boxing playing those video games than actually watching it.
Yeah, well, I'll just say this. So, Matt, you were saying a lot of fights don't go the full rounds. That's actually because in reality, not the Rocky universe, and especially now that we know more. A ref is much more quick to like just stop the fight, and because the ref's job is ultimately to be like, hey, this guy can no longer defend himself. I'm stopping this. That's what happened, and that's what happened with Mayweather and McGregor. Eventually, the ref, it was like the 10th round, and he was just like, okay, Conor can no longer defend himself. I'm calling this. Whereas in the Rocky movies,
no one's stopping anything.
Like non-stop punches to the face. And the ref is just like, all right, he's still on his 2 feet. I'll watch this.
Yeah, I'm going to let it go and see what happens. He might die, but I'm not stopping this thing.
Yeah, well, if he dies, he dies.
There you go.
Another Rocky 4 reference.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's great. That's good to know. Good real like actual boxing insight. That's actually really good. So I love like I don't know, is there like what is it called? Like if you do something, then like there's like if you lose the belt, if you're the champion, do you automatically get the right to refute and like do a rematch for the belt?
That's a good question.
Because like
I was going to ask Ken this. I don't know.
The only reason Rocky fought Apollo a second time after he lost was because Apollo wanted that rematch. But like Rocky, I felt like wanted the rematch more than Clubber. And was it Clubber just like, yeah, fuck it, I'll beat his ass a second time? Or was it like, no, because he was the ex-champion, he can like, fight again. And then going back into Rocky 4, the fight was an exhibition match, essentially. It was like a fight for pride. The heavyweight belt wasn't even like on the line for it, which probably would have added to the drama if it actually was. But I always was curious about that with the Rocky franchise because it's never seemed like that. And it seemed like with Mason the Line Dixon and Rocky, like, there was like, it's not for the actual belt, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know as much about like the whole title or like how and when you schedule a fight. I just know the mechanics of how
Oh, okay.
sport goes.
Yeah, I mean, it
He
seems
essentially
like
Ken essentially just knows how to kick our ass in a boxing ring. Is what he's saying.
it seems like one of two things happen. It's like either you're the champion and you lose and you get like an automatic rematch, or you go to like the back of the line and of
Yeah.
challengers. And then it seems they have to like the champ has to want to fight you again, is what it seems like. But I don't know
Ah.
either. Like it seems like I'm basing off of UFC, which I feel like I hear more about than boxing these days. Like
Yeah.
that it seems like if a UFC fight is like really close, like it's like by decision or something, then they're more prone to have a rematch. But if it's like a first round knockout, I feel like that guy who lost is just like you're back of the line. So maybe I don't know. I guess we're not sports guys. I don't know.
That's a good point. But yeah, just like that last fight, because you get to watch it all entirely, I always have gotten annoyed the older I get with the Rocky movies. Like, I want to see the fighting. You go through an hour sometimes, especially in the first two movies, get to almost an hour and a half of a movie that's building up to a fight. I want to see the damn fight, you know?
Is it just me, or does it feel like the Creed movies have gotten better about showing the fights?
Yeah, and I
Like,
think
they
that's
still
just
montage
technology.
through. Yeah.
I feel like it's just like with, better camera work that's allowed it to feel like, especially in Rocky 2 or Creed 2, man, like the work in that movie looks freaking awesome when he's fighting. Like, I feel like I'm almost in the freaking ring with the POV
the
scenes.
POV shots of
and they
Victor punching
apparently
him.
shot Creed 3 like in IMAX. And I saw something before a movie I saw where Michael B. Jordan was like, "Oh, we shot these in IMAX. They're going to be like the most realistic looking fights ever," or something crazy. It was like, "Oh, okay." So I guess the technology's got better to shoot fights in different ways. But I'd rather see more of the fight. I'm like you, Chris, than kind of flying past them in a montage. So,
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, when the fight, happens, the movie like ends with him kind of like on top. I am curious. Was it the studio that forced the hand for a Rocky 4? Because I feel like Rocky 3, I mean, Rocky 2 could have edited it perfectly and it's just like a back, 1-2 punch kind of movie. But Rocky 3, if you got a trilogy, that's pretty good in the 1980s, to get a trilogy of films. And like 3 wraps up things perfectly. But then there's 4 and then 5 in the 90s. 4 felt like it was a little bit, long. Was 4 1984, 85?
I think 86.
Or 86, so 3 years after. So it was the longest in between.
I could be wrong. Let me double check that. Go on.
No, it is 85. This is 82.
Okay.
And then it's 85. So there's a big gap between 4 and 5, because it's like 5-year gap to 1990, I think, is Rocky 5.
Was it 90 or 92?
It was 90.
Was it 90? Okay.
Yeah. And apparently and apparently they did spend all that time in Russia, because when he comes back, his kid has grown 5 years.
That's the thing. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
These kept making money, and it's funny because Rocky 3 did well. It made a lot of, but 4 made a shit ton of money. Like,
that's the best grossing one, right?
Yeah, it made $300 million, which I was curious how much that was in today's money. That's almost $900 million. Rocky 4 almost made $1 billion.
Avatar better look out if another Rocky movie had to came out. Then
right.
That's insane. It's crazy, like how much anti-Russian propaganda there was in the U.S. for people to go support that movie.
They were like, "Yeah, in the Cold War, Rocky, you could do it."
Sylvester Stallone single-handedly ended the Cold War. Also, another funny thing about Rocky 4 is apparently, when Rocky's like given that heartfelt soliloquy, when the announcer is like translating, apparently he's just speaking bullshit, because Rocky will like give like 2 or 3 sentences, and the guy's just like, and like that's it.
Oh gosh, yeah, Rocky 4. Yeah, what is it? What is that term? It subverts expectations, right? Like that's the big thing. Actually, Rocky 4, if anything, is more of an art house film that we give it credit for in hindsight. Rocky 3, I don't know. I think we talked about it enough. It's definitely like the movie where if I want to watch a Rocky movie and I don't want to sit for 2 hours and watch like the drama of Rocky, I don't know. When I watch Rocky 2, and I think it's not a fault of Rocky 2. I actually really enjoy Rocky 2, hence why it's my second favorite. I feel like I can't watch it without watching Rocky 1 because it's so seamless.
Yeah.
But Rocky 3 feels like that perfect separation from the first, but still is the heart of those first 2 movies, while also having like the fun of what the franchise is going to bring later on anyway. So I got to give it credit because it did that without actually knowing if there were going to be more movies after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I don't know what else to say either. I'm like, I love Rocky 3. I made my claim that's my favorite. So it's
Has it
like,
always
that's my-
so you said, Matt, it was like, built up on rewatches. Like, so did you grow up watching those Rocky movies, you and Ken? Like, did you like watch them a lot? Like, I remember watching Rocky and not being as interested when I was like growing up until I was like forced to sit down and watch them, and then I was like, wow, these movies are actually really cool. You know what I mean?
I think maybe I won't speak too much more. I think Ken did. I'd said I didn't see him till like 10 years ago on Netflix, and they all just popped on, like the whole series popped on. And I said I should probably finally watch these. And I'm kind of glad I did watch them as an adult, because I feel like, especially like the first one, I feel like I wouldn't have the patience for when I was younger, because it's like a little slower. But watching literally the 1 through 5, because I don't even know if Balboa was on there. Maybe Balboa was on it too. But watching that whole series really close together, I felt like even then 3 and 4 like popped as my favorites. I think that's just more what I gravitate towards, is like ridiculous, over the top type stuff like that. And like, keep the reality. I'll take the ridiculous, like over the top Rocky stuff. But I do remember being super shocked about Rocky 2 at the time, because I never heard anyone talk about Rocky 2. And I was like, oh, we're doing the same thing. This should be boring. But like, I feel like I liked Rocky 2 almost as much as 1. And I was like, oh, but three, even then, when I first watched the whole series, was my favorite. And it still is on the rewatch. I was like, yeah, this is everything I want in a Rocky movie, honestly. Sorry, Ken. I know you love one. They're very, very far apart.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was a kid, because I first saw the Rocky movies when I was 12 years old, and this was 2005, because I think they started playing them on TV more because Rocky Balboa was coming out in 2006.
Yep.
And so I was 12 years old watching the Rocky movies, and I just fell in love with them when I was a kid. Rocky 4 was my favorite because it's the most over the top, insane one.
Yeah.
But growing up with it and everything, and just watching them all over and over as an adult, the first one has grown to be my favorite.
Yeah, it's one of those franchises I think people almost forget about, like how many there are, and like how accessible of a moneymaker it is, because those Creed movies have made money too. You know what I mean? I remember when Creed 1 was coming out, people were like, oh my gosh, they're literally milking what they can from this franchise that's been dormant. But it's like, no, like these are pretty good on their own. And when I watch the Rocky movies now, especially 2023, right, I think about Stallone in that situation where like he doesn't technically own the rights to the character of Rocky, and like the whole legalization of all that, legality, excuse me, and also like you think about like all the work he'd put in. He was a writer, he was helping producing, he was putting money towards all these movies, he was getting in shape for these roles and stuff like that, and he never got, like, I felt like he got an Oscar for Best Picture, obviously, but I don't feel like we still properly rewarded him for Rocky. I mean, sure, he made a lot of money off him, but he got that nomination in Creed finally for like a supporting.
He should have won.
Matt and I were both infuriated when he didn't win, because he won the Golden Globe, he won the Critics' Choice Award. I think naturally you're supposed to win the Oscar from there.
And now that I've seen Bridge of Spies with Mark Rylance, I can like really officially say I still think Stallone should have won. Even though I think Mark Rylance is really good at Bridge of Spies, I'm still like, nope, Stallone should have gotten it for Creed.
These Spielberg movies, man, they're ruining cinema for me.
I feel like I feel like that was a weird thing with the Academy being like too snooty for their own good, where they're like, we're not going to reward Stallone, he's a mainstream actor, and but I felt there was something there kind of like that, where it's like, we're not going to give him the Oscar. I don't know. Still bothers me. He should have won. He really should have won.
That's what the thing is. It's like, I think people forget like just how universal it's just like the franchise as a whole. It really is. I don't know. I feel like, again, I feel like Rocky in a way kind of gets like the Sandlot treatment, or like, where it's like, oh, that's just childhood nostalgia. They age bad. They're not as good. But like, you go back and watch them. Like, they still are good. I still love enjoying like the Sandlot. You go back and watch the Rocky movies. Sure, they're a little cheesy. Sometimes like the things are over the top, but like, they're still really good movies. Like, even like, think about like in terms of franchises of movies that have like more than 3, how much of like the production of the value or like the rewatchability of them kind of diminish, and they're just so far removed from the original. I feel like those Rocky movies just don't skip a beat. You know what I mean?
They never let you down. And I mean, again,
even though Rocky 5 is like my least favorite, I mean, I'll still watch Rocky fucking whoop Tommy Gunn. Like, I'll still watch that. Tommy the Machine Gun is one of the most badass names ever.
That is a great name.
They're all incredibly formulaic, but they never let you down.
Also, like one of my most paused movies growing up as an adolescent was obviously Rocky V with the drawing that his kid right was that just me or was that all of us too?
Yeah, I mean,
trying to catch Matt in 4K right now.
Again, I didn't see 5 till I was like in my 20s. So I
think as a child, for me, it was more Titanic and the drawing scene.
Oh, Titanic was a big deal. I mean, that was. I don't know how they got away with that PG-13.
Yeah, for PG,
I have no idea.
You know why? It's because the studio likes James Cameron and they broke their own rule.
I mean, yeah, I love James Cameron too. Like, keep him coming with those Avatar movies, James. Why are we giving money to Steven Spielberg or whatever the Fableman movie? I mean, give me more fucking Avatar for God's sakes. I just love how this podcast is just Steven Spielberg slander. I'm still here for it.
So fun. I'm doing a big Spielberg podcast in like 2 weeks too.
Yeah,
Matt, haven't you been trying to catch up and watch every single Spielberg movie that's out there?
That I haven't seen, yeah.
Yeah, we talk about like, people who like sports movies like The Blind Side and stuff like that. People who love war movies, they're going to reference like Saving Private Ryan and like Band of Brothers, like these Spielberg stuff. Like, nobody actually likes these movies. They just like the war stuff because they're gross individuals who like to see people die on screen, right? Oh my God, I can't believe I said that. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
That's a bait. I'm sorry.
Oh man, I don't know how to even respond. I was like, I like that movie. Am I gross? No.
It's weird.
God.
No, but it is weird though. It's a weird segment, but like it feels like there's some movies that just go with an audience more for like weird reasons. Like people love Saving Private Ryan, but like that's a long and emotionally draining movie. But I feel like a lot of people like it because of that opening. And it's a very hard watch opening. Like I remember,
it's not a movie I want to rewatch a bunch. I put it with like his Schindler's List, great movie. I don't want to watch Schindler's List like every month. Like they're both really hard watches in their own ways. Like,
but I feel like the traditional like Jim Bro or like something like that. Like, oh, I love Saving Private Ryan. I love that opening. It's crazy. And it's like, okay, you play Call of Duty a little too much. I think
or for me, like dads can watch Saving Private Ryan over and over again. They just
right. Or it's like I love like Forrest Gump, man. Like that movie's really good. It's like it's just so emotional. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like, is it?
I was gonna say, I mean, for me, a lot of the time, it's also with a lot of people sort of going in another direction. Is these people who will like watch movies where it's just like you're missing the point if you idolize them, like Scarface. And also like Scarface is an example, and also apparently there are like really racist dudes who love American History X. It's like, did you not finish the movie?
Yeah, he is not part. Edward Norton is not part of the Sigma movement. I just want to let you know that there.
No, Ed Norton is a great man.
The American History X thing, totally the missing the point thing. Yeah, it's also like the people who are like, I really want like a subversive, like grounded in reality, like Star Wars movie from the perspective of stormtroopers and being part of the Empire. And I'm like, you want a movie about like space Nazis and like sympathizing with them?
Like the fuck?
Yeah. Anyway, but yes, anything else, boys, on Rocky 3 that you want to talk about?
Not that I could think of. I've made my case for being my favorite, so I'm gonna stand by it.
I love all the product placement in this one. It was just like, I wish more movies weren't so like cheeky about their product placement. Movies like, oops, like, oh, we got like this little vending machine that has like our product placement, or like this car.
Oh yeah.
Looking at you, Man of Steel.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, yeah. It's like Rocky 3's like, here you go, son of a bitch. We got Discovery Card, we got the Muppets, we got all this fun stuff.
They're like, hey, if we can have him doing commercials, then it fits in perfectly.
Right. And I'm like, you know what? Hell yeah. Also,
I have made the case it takes me more out of a movie. Not it takes me out when they use fake products that don't exist, but like if these products exist in our world, there is sometimes when it's too out of it where they're like, I'm gonna call you on my Samsung telephone, or like they like it's too ridiculous. But just seeing real brands I see in the real world does not bother me. Like if they really
not called too much attention to.
Yeah, they don't lay it on too thick. But like, it's like it's never bothered me that much.
I love the Wayne's World whole product placement. I will not bow down to any sponsor,
any corporate sponsor. It's
I'm waiting for a Wayne's World like 3, kind of like we got with Bill and Ted.
That'd be great.
Like a legacy movie.
Surprised that has not happened, but it might just be sad at this point because they're both like pretty old.
Also, I mean, I know he showed up for Bohemian Rhapsody, but I feel like Mike Myers It's so funny to me how like Mike Myers like did the Love Guru and Hollywood was just like, okay, no more movies for this guy. But
Yeah,
Adam
you don't get
Sandler
any
can
more
like keep
movies.
making shitty movies, but that's because it's his own production company, I guess.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
be
it's
like, we
because
might let
Adam
you voice Shrek.
Adam
Yeah.
Adam Sandler like signed an exclusive deal with Netflix where they're gonna produce anything he wants to, and like none of his movies go to theaters; they just go straight to Netflix. And he's just like getting paid buttloads for it. And he said, "Ha ha."
Also, Matt,
Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Also, Matt, didn't you say like there was some meme you saw or something where it was just like it was about Adam Sandler? It's just like keep making shitty movies, get a lot of money, weirdly make one movie where you're a really good actor, and
Right.
then go back to making a shitty movies.
Wait, what's the movie that he's good in? It's not Hubie Halloween.
A fun movie. No, but I mean, Uncut Gems.
Oh my god!
Punch Drunk Love. I know Chris has you have a thing with like Uncut Gems, right?
Yeah, it's Unrefined Gems.
Oh boy,
yeah,
I love the movie.
Punch Drunk Love. He's good in that. I think he's great in Uncut Gems. I'm sorry, Chris.
Wait,
to
what's
bring
that
it
new
up,
basketball movie he's in? Was
Oh,
that...
Hustle. He was good in Hustle.
Okay,
yeah.
I thought that was
not
the one
as
you
like
mentioned.
serious.
Oh.
No.
Oh, okay.
Like it's a good movie. It was a good little movie. But plus he just loves basketball. I at this point I respect that like he just is like I'm gonna go off some nice location like Hawaii or
And
somewhere.
so he can hang out with his friends, right?
He takes a vacation like with his friends, it gets paid for it, and they make a movie. Like you know what? At this point, I can't even get mad at the guy. It's
Yeah, I can only admire it at this point.
Yeah, I can't wait for the next what is it called? Like, it's basically like the Expendables, what is it called? Like the angle. It's like we're gonna get a bunch of like my old friends from the '80s. We're just gonna make an over the top '80s movie in the 2010s, right?
Yeah.
That was my big thing. It was like in the Expendables, which I can't wait to cover at some point in the podcast. It's like I always remember when those movies were coming out in the next sequels. It was like, oh, who's the next '80s action star that they totally forgot about that they're gonna add on to this list of like 20 other guys?
Right. You know what? On the top, since we got on the topic of Adam Sandler, what's the better Carl Weathers role, Apollo Creed or Chubbs from Happy Gilmore?
Oh my gosh!
I mean, I love him in Happy Gilmore, but it's got to be Apollo.
Oh, I was gonna say,
absolutely.
I was gonna say, isn't it in Predator? Obviously, as
I
Dylan.
mean, it's great. Predator.
Yeah. God.
Well, Chris, if I can, one last thing I do want to say about Rocky 3 that just it's a little moment that just makes me laugh whenever I see it is when he's having that second fight with Clubber, and you just see the trainer Duke like Clubber like hits him, and Duke is just like no.
Oh yeah.
Duke is an unsung hero of the Rocky franchise.
He's so underrated.
He's great in 4 when he comes back in 4. Oh man, he's good. Yeah.
I love him in Balboa.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember I saw him in a movie that wasn't in the Rocky franchise, and I was like, Tony from Rocky.
Was it The Shining?
Yes, it was Machete. Wait, no, it wasn't.
The Shining.
No,
The Shining. I said.
The Shining. Oh, is he the?
Yes, Scatman Crothers calls him on the radio.
Yes, he's the guy with the plow. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I recently rewatched it when I watched Dr. Sleep for the first time this past October. So that was that was it. Yeah. Good pull. See, Ken knows more about movies than us. Shit.
Yeah, he knows stuff.
Yeah,
not necessarily.
Yeah, you don't like Uncut Gems, right? So that's good. Oh my god.
We both like Uncut Gems, Chris. I'm sorry.
Jeez. Okay. You see, this is why nobody comes to the podcast. It's that one hot take that I'm blacklisted. Anyway, boys, thank you for coming on to the podcast and talking about Rocky 3, subsequently the franchise and 4. But before you guys let you go, like, where can people find the podcast? What is going to be the next thing that's going to be coming up on Film Feast? I'm excited to hear what's coming, what's cooking on the Film Feast podcast.
Well, when do you know when this will come out?
Probably in the next week or so.
Okay. Then I just did an episode that'll be out already with Preston Mitchell, everybody's friend Preston, and we did Inside Man, the Spike Lee movie.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's really good. And we talked about a bunch of Spike Lee movies. So it's a very long episode, but we went off on all these.
I'm excited. I love Spike Lee. Oh,
I love him too. Spike Lee, his the other films, his career. I'm doing Spielberg thing soon that I won't say too much about, but
yeah, please don't. I'm not interested.
Just I know. You're not interested, so that doesn't matter.
But Spike Lee, I will let you know with the Spike Lee episode, I will be writing down everything. And if I don't hear things I agree with, I will be tweeting out things about it. I'm just kidding.
And I've got people lined up. I don't know. I got some episodes. I got stuff lined up. I feel like I say like holidays, I got a little like I was off schedule a little bit, took some breaks, but I feel like I'm back on track. Should be new episodes every Monday. Got some good stuff happening. So yeah, and you can follow the podcast on Twitter at Film Feast Pod. You can follow me on Twitter at MattBled87. Follow me on the podcast on Instagram at Film Feast. And yeah, it's anywhere you get podcasts, you'll find it.
I'm curious, what's going to happen to Film Feast and I guess Inside the Sequel when Twitter eventually, falls under whatever the hell's going on with Elon Musk? Like, what's going to happen?
It's a great question, Chris. I ask myself that all the time. I'll have to go back to like MySpace or something.
Right. Also, don't forget to plug the Patreon because aren't you collecting funds from your subscribers to pay for the blue check mark on Twitter like everyone else?
Not yet. That's when I get really desperate.
Gotcha.
I get really desperate to be doing that. Yeah.
I'm considering it too, so look out for it.
But man, yeah. Well, I will say also before I thank you again for inviting us on. This was so much fun. When I watched the movie again, I was like, this is a good time, and I was excited to talk about it with you. So it's always fun talking to you. So
I'm glad. I was hoping for more of a highbrow conversation, but I was like, no, it's not. This is Inside the Sequel, and this is Rocky 3. This is gonna be a good ass time. But we could still talk about intelligent stuff for the cobwebs listeners of the world and stuff like that.
Right. Daniel's on a break. They need us. They need us right now. He's taking.
We're literally carrying the Twitter podcast verse right now, right? Yeah. Anyway, Ken, where can people find you and what's next for Ken Walker, Texas Ranger?
I don't know. You'll hear me on someone's podcast at some point.
When are you going to change your Twitter handle to Ken Walker, Texas Ranger?
Doesn't even have Twitter.
I don't have
there
Twitter.
You go. Now, dude, you can get a blue check mark now. This is the perfect time.
Get on and get a blue check mark.
Elon's
hand them out. You
don't think you're the real Walker, Texas Ranger.
Just put Chuck Norris's face on.
I would love that. If Ken started like a Walker Texas Ranger Twitter, but it's like people are confused. I think it's like actually associated with the show. It's just Ken.
Right.
Like,
yeah, it'll be good for my subscriber following when they see that.
Yeah, no. I'm on like no social media. I actually even dropped Facebook from my phone. Like it's still there, but I don't have it on my phone. No, you'll hear me on someone's podcast, I'm sure.
Good. Well, I'm excited to see if you're going to be on Film Feast again for something else that's cooking because I really enjoy those when you do collab. Just like, all right, let's just do an episode. Let's just talk about something.
Right. That's usually how it goes with us.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
No problem. Yeah. Thank you for going out making time for this. For those who are listening, please listen into the episode with Nathan Jones and I, where we talk about Brian and the Boss and somewhat about Stone Cold. And then not the wrestler. Weird. I did 2 episodes this month where it's also about ex WWE wrestlers. That's crazy how that worked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're new to the podcast, follow us on Twitter at SequelPod. Email the show at sequelpod@gmail.com. Don't forget to check us out. We're on Spotify, iTunes. Check out InsideTheSequel.com as well for our website. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel as well at Hertastic Reviews, where we talk about Sigma films and bullshit and do hop toys unboxing sets. This point we're getting desperate. But check us out there at Hertastic Reviews as well. And if you remember, if you are not binge watching the Rocky films and getting in shape, do you really care about cinema? Other than that, we'll see you next time.